When I bought my first home, a cozy two-story at the edge of Maplewood Estates, I thought I'd found peace. The neighborhood was clean, quiet, and filled with people who waved when you drove by. I hadn't even been there 2 weeks when the trouble began, trouble that would end with flashing lights, a shouting match, and one of the most ridiculous claims I'd ever heard. It was a Saturday morning when I first met her, Karen, the self-proclaimed head of the HOA. I was painting my mailbox black when she marched up, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched like a crown of authority. "You can't do that," she said sharply. "Mailboxes in Maplewood must be forest green. It's in the HOA charter." I blinked. "HOA? There isn't one here. My realtor said this neighborhood doesn't have an active association." She snorted. "Oh, we're reinstating it. I'm the acting president." That was the beginning of my headache. She handed me a printed list of violations, apparently. My garbage bins were unsightly. My mailbox color was non-compliant. And I owed a $200 community maintenance fee. I laughed, thinking it was a prank. But Karen wasn't joking. By the end of the week, she'd taped another letter to my door. This time with bold red ink declaring, "Failure to comply will result in property reclamation." I didn't know what property reclamation meant, but I was about to find out. That weekend, I caught her measuring my lawn with a tape measure while muttering about standards. I told her to leave my property. She smirked. "You'll regret this when the HOA takes back what's theirs." I ignored her until Monday morning, when I came home from work to find a sign planted in my yard. "This property is under HOA review. Occupancy pending approval." That's when I realized this wasn't just neighborhood gossip. Karen genuinely believed she had authority over my house. My phone buzzed constantly with her messages. And I even saw her speaking to my mailman. When I finally confronted her, she said something that made my jaw drop. "You're lucky we're letting you stay until the paperwork clears. Technically, this house belongs to the HOA now." I laughed, right before deciding I'd had enough. It was time to call the county office and verify once and for all who actually owned my home. The next morning, I went down to the county recorder's office. The clerk, a kind woman named Dolores, pulled up my deed on her screen and printed it out. "You're the sole owner," she said. "There's no HOA tied to your parcel." In fact, Maplewood Estates dissolved its association back in 2009. "Dissolved?" I asked. "Yes. Legally defunct. There hasn't been a registered HOA here in over a decade." I left with the paperwork in hand, feeling both vindicated and furious. I wanted to show Karen the documents, wave them in her face, and tell her to leave me alone. But I knew better. People like her didn't care about facts, they cared about control. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something alarming. My garage door was open. Inside stood Karen and 2 other neighbors I barely knew. They were wearing reflective vests, holding clipboards, and sorting through boxes I'd stacked near the wall. "What the hell are you doing in my garage?" I shouted. Karen turned calmly. "Inspection. Your property failed multiple compliance checks. We're cataloging assets for HOA repossession." I called the police immediately. When the officer arrived, Karen produced a fake charter binder stuffed with outdated papers and signatures from residents who'd moved away years ago. The officer flipped through it, then looked at me. "Sir, you have your deed." I handed it over. He compared it and nodded. "Ma'am," he told her, "this document doesn't hold legal authority. This property belongs to him." Karen crossed her arms. "We'll see about that. The HOA board will escalate this." The officer gave her a warning for trespassing. And she reluctantly left, but not before glaring at me like I'd stolen her throne. For the next week, she doubled down, sending fake notices and even taping "eviction pending" signs on my door. I contacted a lawyer, who laughed when I showed him the so-called charter. This isn't even formatted legally, he said. She's bluffing. But if she keeps trespassing, call law enforcement again. I thought that would be the end of it. But Karen wasn't finished. The following Friday, I came home to find her changing the locks on my front door, claiming the HOA had reclaimed ownership due to unpaid fees. This time, I didn't call just the police. I called the sheriff's department. When the sheriff's cruiser pulled up, I was standing on my front lawn shouting at Karen, who held a shiny new lock and a clipboard like a weapon. My neighbors peeked through their curtains. The scene looked like a reality show gone wrong. The sheriff, a tall man named Daniels, approached calmly. What's going on here? Karen immediately launched into her speech. This homeowner has failed to pay HOA fees and comply with regulations. As acting president, I'm repossessing the property on behalf of Maplewood Estates. Daniels raised an eyebrow. You're repossessing his house? She nodded firmly. Yes. The HOA has the right to reclaim non-compliant properties. Daniels turned to me. Do you have proof of ownership? I handed him the deed and the printed statement from the county recorder. He looked them over, then slowly turned back to Karen. Ma'am, this document shows he is the sole legal owner. There is no active HOA tied to this property. Karen stiffened. That can't be right. The HOA never dissolved. I have the charter. Daniels interrupted. You mean this? He took the binder from her hand and flipped through it. These records are from 2009. There's no state registration. No tax filings, no official officers listed. You have zero legal standing here. Karen's face flushed crimson. Well, we're reinstating it. Not without a county filing. Signatures from all residents, and state acknowledgement. You can't just declare yourself president and seize property. Her voice rose. He's ruining the neighborhood. His trash bins are visible from the street. Daniels sighed. Ma'am, visible trash bins don't justify trespassing, vandalism, or attempted theft of property. Karen started to argue again, but Daniels' tone hardened. If you don't leave this property immediately, you'll be arrested for trespassing and attempted burglary. For the first time, she faltered. Her bravado cracked as the sheriff's deputy stepped forward, hand resting on his belt. She sputtered, You'll regret this. Everyone here supports me. Daniels gave her a long, level stare. Then they can form a real HOA. Until then, this house belongs to him, and you're done here. Karen stomped off, muttering about appeals and legal action. The sheriff handed me his card. If she comes back, call us directly. She's crossed too many lines. When she was gone, a few neighbors came out, whispering apologies. We didn't know she was doing all that, one said. She just acts like she runs everything. I looked at my house, still bearing the half-installed lock she'd tried to claim as her own, and realized it wasn't over yet. Karen wasn't someone who backed down easily. For a few days, things went quiet. No more fake notices. No new signs. I finally started to breathe again. But then came the letter, a thick envelope stamped. Maplewood Estates Homeowners Association. Official correspondence. Inside was a bill for $3,200. In retroactive maintenance fees. Karen wasn't giving up. I took it straight to Sheriff Daniels, who laughed. You're kidding me. She's still at it. He advised me to file a harassment report. I did, and within a week, Karen was served with a cease and desist order. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she'd targeted. Another couple down the street said she'd fined them $150 for having unauthorized Halloween decorations. Someone else got cited for using the wrong shade of mulch. When the deputies questioned her, she still claimed authority. But the county attorney made it clear. Impersonating an HOA official to collect money or control property is fraud. Karen faced multiple charges, including trespassing and harassment. Her HOA binder was entered into evidence, complete with her handwritten presidential notes, and mock violation tickets. The day they escorted her out of the neighborhood was surreal. She stood on her lawn, shouting, "You're all ungrateful." I was protecting property values. As the deputies loaded boxes from her garage into their truck. Afterward, peace finally returned to Maplewood. The neighbors who'd been afraid to speak up started talking again. We even held a block party, without any approval forms or decor restrictions. The laughter that evening felt like reclaiming something bigger than property. It was reclaiming sanity. A few months later, I got a letter from the county clerk. Karen had been fined and ordered to stay 500 feet away from my property. She'd also been evicted from her rental for causing public disturbances. Sometimes I still think about her, how deeply she believed her fantasy of control. Maybe she was lonely, maybe she needed to feel powerful. But power without truth is just illusion wearing a badge. Standing on my porch now, with the new green mailbox, I painted it that way just for irony, I chuckled. The neighborhood was calm, the trees rustled softly. And my house, stood exactly where it belonged. In the end, it wasn't about paint colors, fees, or fake charters. It was about one simple truth. You can't own what was never yours, no matter how big your clipboard is.